instant result. Och det här är bästa sättet för att se ett resultat, det är bottman. Eller om man har en scanner, kroppsscanner då, så kan man även fota. Men det är enklast just nu.
Ready? You're responsible for pictures?
Yeah.
Hello everybody. Hello. Nice to see you. Does everybody understand English? Okay. What about Geordie English? Which is slightly different. We speak a lot faster in the northeast of England, so I'll try to keep it as slow as I can. Welcome. We've come to talk to you today about the Verju technology. My name is Simon Ramshaw. I'm the managing director of the company. The devices are manufactured in the US, but we run the European, Middle East and African networks on behalf of Erchonia Corporation, who manufacture the equipment in Florida, in the US. Now I'm just going to breeze through the first couple of slides. The reason why I keep these slides in, I think if you get involved in any technology, you should be looking just as much into the company as you are into the technology. So we have quite a big history. We started in 1996. We're world renowned as the leaders in low-level laser therapy. We started off with handheld devices, which are to reduce pain and promote healing. We have 15 FDA clearances in the US. And like a lot of technologies, you come across other things that you can do with it by accident. So when we started off with the handhelds, we got the FDA clearance to use them as an adjunct to a liposuction procedure and also breast augmentation. So during the liposuction procedure, they noticed that there was something happening to the fat cell, which is when we started the research, which eventually came to the body contouring technology. So we have the Erchonia, which is a red laser, and that's more specific to med spas, health, fitness, that sort of thing. The Verju is for cosmetic doctors, plastic surgery clinics, so medical stroke healthcare environment. We also have a little device in the corner there called Lunula, which is for toenail fungus, onychomycosis. So we have over 15 FDA clearances, as I've just said. Because we are a research and development company, everything goes through a very rigid level 1 FDA process, which we'll allude to a little bit later. Why do I think there's big promise in this technology? I've been involved in medical aesthetics and plastic surgery since about 2005. I've seen a lot of changes in the market. Now the Americans are very good at market research, and a lot of the research is telling us that patients are actually looking for a non-surgical option more than a surgical option these days if they can get away with it and if it's effective. So non-invasive procedures are on the up. They have been for quite a while now. For things like body contouring or fat loss or cellulite removal, patients seem to want something that there's no pain, no downtime, no bruising, something that they can get done in their lunch hour and do it quite discreetly. And there's not a lot of effective technologies out there that can actually provide that. So from the likes of the research that we've got, we started over a 4-year period of actually working on an effective non-invasive technology, which at the end of the day gives your patients what they want. So just a tiny little, is there no sound?
No, I'm afraid not, I don't think so.
Okay, we'll pass through that one. This was just explaining, it's just a little short video for about 30 seconds, which just shows the actual treatment, but we've got a live patient here anyway, so it doesn't make that much difference. So because we are a research and development company, we have over 20 peer-reviewed published journals to go with our 15 FDA clearances. So from your perspective, running a clinic, it's giving your patients the reassurance that the device or the equipment that you're buying has been going through the proper process, is safe, and it is effective. These are some of the FDA clearances that we currently hold, from promoting healing to wound healing to pain reduction. Then in 2010, that's when we got our first FDA clearance for circumferential reduction. It's the red laser, which was 9 centimeters reduction in two of the treatments. measurements taken 1 week after the last treatment. So that's a 3-week process. So a lot of technologies take a lot longer because they've got to go through the process. Our process is very quick, and the FDA actually cleared our body contouring equipment, the results, as non-temporary. They never use the word permanent because nothing ever is. You know, you have liposuction and you go to McDonald's every day of the week for 2 months and you're going to put weight back on again. It's pretty obvious. So what non-temporary means, as long as the patient leads a normal to healthy lifestyle after the treatment, the results will maintain. Of course, from a clinic perspective, we don't always lead healthy lifestyles. We start off leading it and then we maybe go back to our old wicked ways, which in Northern Europe tends to be probably alcohol related. So that's important as well. So, more FDA clearances. Now, when we first used the handheld, the reason why we came across this technology was it was initially used to reduce the amount of pain that the patient felt post breast augmentation, post liposuction. So when the plastic surgeons were using this little handheld laser on the patient's abdomen before they aspirated the fat, they were noticing that the fat was coming out a lot easier than what it normally did do, and the colour of the fat was actually different. So I've been in the theatre before in my own life, going back quite a few years, but you know, you see a lot of blood, you see a lot of debris come out on the left, and you see after a handheld procedure, the fat is more yellow, it's more healthy, it's not as much blood and debris. So we didn't really understand at that time why this was happening. We just thought it was promoting healing. We didn't realise it was having any effect on the fat cell. So we started developing the body contouring technology. It was 4 years worth of research, and we'll go into a little bit later the process of how the fat is released from the cell. So first, for any laser device or any low-level laser which relies on a photonic energy effect rather than a thermal effect, you need to identify a photoreceptor. This photoreceptor absorbs the laser light and releases this photochemical action. So once you've actually activated the mitochondria, which are the cells inside, it releases this reaction which allows you to release adenosine triphosphate, ATP, and ROS, and creates a secondary cascade which actually converts to nitric oxide. And it's throughout this process that we realized that the laser light, and through this chemical reaction, was creating a small pore in the membrane of the fat cell. And it was emulsifying the intracellular fat, because intracellular fat is very thick and stodgy. And we were noticing that it was emulsifying and it was liquefying the fat. And it was actually releasing out of the cell through this temporary pore in the cell. So visuals are far easier to understand than somebody talking. So we're releasing the photonic energy, it's going into the mitochondria, it's releasing this photochemical reaction of ROS and ATP, secondary cascade of nitric oxide, and that's creating this temporary pore in the membrane of the cell. If anybody is really into the science side, the photoreceptor that we use is cytochrome C oxidase. It's an enzyme in the respiratory chain. So it's exciting that. It's anything you excite the mitochondria with, it releases this pronounced photochemical effect, which releases ATP and ROS. Now there's the mitochondria you see on the right there, so we're exciting it to an extent that the ATP and ROS is being released, converting to the nitric oxide, so it induces this lipid peroxidation. Once that happens, the intracellular fat is released from the cell as free fatty acids. Then you use the lymph vessels to transport the fat to the lymph nodes. Then the macrophage, or the white blood cells, break it down and it's released as carbon dioxide. So it's a different way of doing it. We all know there's body contouring technologies out there, or there's any technology which, like liposuction, removes the fat cells. Thermal technologies like an ultrasound, or go the opposite way to the likes of a cryo, explode the fat cell either through heat or through excessive cooling. We believe in actually in preserving the integrity of the cell, because we feel that it's very important for a biological function, keeping your metabolism balanced. So we release the fat from the cell, returning the cell back to, or the fat cell back to its smaller, leaner shape. It's like when you, I suppose if you can imagine, you have a balloon, it starts off, it's deflated, and you fill it with water, the balloon gets bigger and bigger. That's obviously what happens to the fat cell once we overindulge and we eat fatty foods and sugar, etc. So the balloon gets to such an state, you prick it with a pin, the water starts splurting out, and the balloon gets smaller and smaller and smaller and reduces back to its leaner state. Pretty much what we're doing to the fat cell, causing this temporary pore in the membrane of the cell, which stays open for between 48 and 72 hours, pulling the intracellular fat out and dispersing it through the lymphatic system. Now this is a good slide to show from a microscopy. So when you shine the laser light on the cell, we can actually see through the studies that we do this temporary pore coming in the cell, and again, when we observe it, it's between 48 and 72 hours that the pore actually clears and you've got a full cell again. You can see here from this one, we got on the left a microscopy image of a fat cell. Once we release the intracellular fat, emulsify it, to release free fatty acids, and then later you've got the cells actually return to a far leaner state. This is again to microscopy because we do ex vivo and in vivo studies in a lab, so you can see, you can take some cells off a cadaver, put them in a petri dish, use a microscope and actually study them, and we can see again from here that there's a temporary pore observed. That was after 6 minutes, that's with the red laser, but the green has the same mechanism of action. The lipids drain out of the cell and the fat cell collapses. Now, this is just some slide. I mean, it's subjective, but when you look at the studies and you look at, everybody seems to treat the fat cell as the enemy, or the fat as the enemy. It's not the enemy. We're the enemy because we're the ones that are actually filling it up. But the actual fat cell is very important to actually stabilize your metabolism. And you can see there from the list there, there's very important biological functions that you can actually get from the cell. So when you're talking about body contouring technologies, we're very much leading the way in preserving the integrity of the fat cell, but just releasing the intracellular fat. So the energy that we're delivering.
Sorry, could you just go into slightly what happens when you remove fat cells?
Well, it's like I said, it's all subjective when it comes to this. But when you're actually removing the cell, the cell, because it's an endocrine, that we use, it's part of the respiratory chain. So all these different functions, if anybody actually wants a copy of this study, we can send it through to them. But actually, again, it's just our individual opinion in actually preserving the integrity of the cell because of these separate functions that we believe by removing the cell restricts these functions. So when we're actually removing the fat from the cell, you remember we've got billions of fat cells in our body. So we're not actually removing every cell there, we're obviously, it's sort of picking and choosing the cells that it actually removes the fat from. I mean, the way we do it, I suppose, the way to look at it is, we're delivering a dose of energy very much like what you would associate with a pharmaceutical drug. You have a headache, you've got a recommended dose of 2 paracetamol tablets that you take for your headache. We've instilled in the device the suitable dose to actually get the effect that we want on the cell. And that's to do with the joules per square centimeter that we covered, to do with the output, the milliwatts of power that we actually put in. So we're delivering this dose of energy just like you get from a pharmaceutical drug. So it's like an agonist effect that you would tend to associate with that. There's the next slide, which same sort of behavior, but obviously without the side effects. Sorry, very about time. So then the first study that we did when we looked at the 9 centimeters of reduction, and that was 3 treatments a week for 2 weeks. Measurements were actually taken 1 week after the last treatment, so it was a 3-week process. And we saw on average, if you were to release 9 centimeters of circumference from the body, that's the equivalent to about 2 liters of fat. 2 liters of fat is the equivalent to around about 12,600 calories, as it alludes to there. So if any patient comes into the clinic and say, oh, we can lose 9 centimeters just like that. To lose 9 centimeters, these are sort of things that you would have to potentially do to lose 12,600 calories. Of course, this is average, everybody's different, everybody loses at a different level. But it just sort of proves over a period of time, nobody, I mean, a marathon is what, 3 hours to run? And they're saying they're jogged for 17 straight hours, which even Mo Farah from the UK, I don't think he could manage that. So how do we know that the released free fatty acids aren't entering the bloodstream? In the US, they've had to go through this whole process of we're releasing the fat from the cell. Well, what if the fat's actually entering the bloodstream? What if it's bad for the patient? What if it's unhealthy from the patient? What if it's not leaving the body through the circulatory system, the lymphatic system, like we say it is? So Erchonia started out in 2008 to actually do a study measuring cholesterol of the patient to prove one way or the other whether it enters the bloodstream or not. And they actually noticed during the course of treatments that there was a reduction in LDL cholesterol, which proves that the fat, LDL cholesterol, as everybody probably knows, is the bad cholesterol. So it's proving that the fat isn't actually entering the bloodstream. American surgeons are also saying as well, because we can treat 3 body areas at the same time, we can identify like waist, hips and thighs, which were the mainstay of the studies that we do. What if the fat is being redistributed to other parts of the body? Again, what if it isn't leaving the body through the lymphatic system? So they did this study on 689 patients and measured like the ankles, the knees, thighs, waist, upper abdomen, chest, arms, to prove that the fat wasn't being redistributed. And from this study, not only did they notice the 4 inches or 10 centimeters of reduction around the areas that were being treated, they also noticed another 2 inches of reduction from other areas of the body, which weren't even being treated. So when you look into it, you look at the way the cells within our body react. They react by talking, by communicating. So even though these areas aren't actually getting any treatment, we actually notice, albeit small, but small circumferential reductions in other areas of the body because of the communication channels between the cells. So we had a lot of these questions from the US plastic surgeons. We were quite lucky when we took it on because all of the questions that we were being asked had already been answered in the US. And we do it in Erchonia by way of studies. We can all do, I can just employ a good set of reps to go out and talk a good game, but we prefer to actually launch things that have got superior clinical data, or level 1, sham-controlled, randomized, double-blind studies. We got an FDA clearance using the red laser on circumferential reductions of the arms, the upper arm, which is a big problem. So we got that FDA clearance. The good thing about this study, it's very difficult over a period of time to actually see over a long term how long the fat actually stays off of the circumferential reduction stays away, because we could all have a treatment now, we could all lose anywhere between 10 and 20 centimeters. But in 6 months' time, half of us have probably carried on leading a healthy or normal lifestyle. Half of us have sort of gone back into the debauchery that we did before, from going out, Indian food, Chinese food, that sort of thing that we set out to not do, but we do. So this one, the results were actually measured 7.6 months after the last treatment, and the results were still the same, give or take a couple of millimeters from the results that we recorded straight after the treatment. This is the study that was done for the Verju, the first one, again double-blind, sham-controlled. With our sham-controlled studies, we use LED as the sham, and obviously laser diode as the test group. They have more credibility when you do it multi-center. I think we've all sort of maybe gone through stages. I know when I used to be a consultant in clinics, advising them what technologies to buy, I would go in and sometimes they would say, oh yeah, we've got this, it's FDA cleared. And I'd say, well, okay, but what's an FDA cleared in? Oh, well, we're doing body contouring. Yeah, but is it FDA cleared in that? Or is it just FDA cleared? It's important to check when you're buying any technology exactly what the studies were that were behind it. What type of studies? How many patients were it? Was it placebo controlled? Was it randomized? It's easy from an unrandomized study. I could actually pick people here and say, right, you will get a good result, you will get a good result, you will get a good result. But the randomized studies show more of a pragmatic viewpoint, because you will all get patients in that maybe don't respond how you like them to. So it's important for you to know the best case scenarios and also the worst case scenarios, and they're better done on randomized studies. So patients were between 18 and 70. They all had to sign an affidavit when they first started to say that they would not change their lifestyle. So this is no lifestyle changes, no adjunct therapies, it's just the actual treatment. And when they came in, they had to bring a food and lifestyle diary so we could see that they weren't making any changes, because we wanted the results to be just specific to the technology and to the treatment, not anything else. Of course, when you get it in clinic, because it's linked to the lymphatic system, there's things you can do to optimize the performance, like more walking, like hydration, things like that, which will help, but we wanted the results to be just the technology. So you can see from this chart what the placebo group is. Now there's a slide I've got later on, which I'm conscious of the time to move on, because you can get very in-depth into this. And we go out and talk around Europe, the Middle East and Africa. And because it's newer, because the way that we do it is different, there's a lot more questions that actually come from it. So anything else that you have afterwards, if you direct towards Gilbert or Christian or even myself, we're happy to answer it. Right, the first protocol was 3 treatments a week for 2 weeks. We tried a different protocol, 1 treatment per week for 6 weeks. And again, you see the result. So that the final measurements were taken because the body is still processing the released fat even after the treatments are finished. So it's between 1 and 2 weeks after the last treatment. And you can see an increase. To me, that's because the less treatments over a period of time, if you've got somebody who, for example, has a slow metabolism, it's taking their body longer to process that released fat. So this sort of protocol is pretty good for that patient. If you have a patient that's naturally active, they're healthy, they've got no problems, if they want 3 treatments a week for 2 weeks, they can do it. But we've got flexibility of treatment, whether it's 1 treatment per week, 2 treatments per week, or 3. And you would put a bespoke program together for each patient that you saw based on the answers they give you in the consultation. Because like anything, no matter who's doing a technology at this fair, the consultation is just as important as the technology. The reason why we use LED against laser for the sham studies is because LEDs are non-coherent light. So we talked before about exciting the mitochondria to give this pronounced photochemical reaction. To do that, you've got to try to get as much energy into the mitochondria as you can to give the big result. Because laser diode is a coherent light, it basically goes straight to the mitochondria and doesn't lose energy on the way. Whereas you get something like LED, so as soon as it hits the skin, the light scatters. So by the time any light actually gets to the mitochondria, it gives quite a weak effect. So you'll notice from the previous slide that there was still a result with the LED, but it wasn't very pronounced. That's because of the amount of energy that's being delivered to the cell isn't sufficient enough. Now this is why LEDs used a lot in skin conditions, because as the light actually hits the skin and it scatters, you get LED devices that are very good to treat a lot of skin conditions, but when you're talking about depth, it doesn't have the depth and it doesn't have the amount of energy needed to create this photochemical cascade that we're showing. I mean, depth as well, we did an MRI study, showed a 4.5 centimeter depth of penetration. That's what most doctors and surgeons ask, what's the depth of penetration? I say, actually it's not about that today. So I said, no, it's not about depth of penetration, it's about peak absorption in the cell. We're targeting subcutaneous fat, that's relatively superficial. Why do we need to go down 4.5 centimeters? We don't. So we've got that study if anybody wants to see it, but it's about exciting the mitochondria in the cell and delivering this pronounced photochemical reaction, getting the energy, releasing the ROS, getting the energy. So it's a cascade. So the treatment protocol, we've gone through, this is 6 laser diodes. Now you can target any area of subcutaneous fat. Now it's built for the hips, waist and thighs, but in the US and in Europe we use it for knees. We use it, okay, you've got to get the laser diodes. Sometimes we use a bit of Velcro tape or something to get them closer in so they can go to a smaller area. There's some good results we've had on patients for like the subcutaneous fat in the neck and the jowl area. So flexibility of protocol, these are the type of results. We've got the FDA clearance in body contouring and also cellulite. So that's not a separate treatment, that's the same treatment. So if you get a lady who wants some reduction in her thighs and she has cellulite in the thigh, she gets a circumferential reduction and a reduction in the appearance of cellulite at the same time. So you can see from this patient here, from the abdomen also the thighs, reduction in circumference. We don't have an FDA clearance for skin tightening or stretch marks, but we do notice that it does quite nicely on them. It works well because of the collagen remodeling that we're getting from this, which of course is helping reduce the appearance of cellulite. It's also helping with the stretch marks. This is a clinic in the UK. And because there's no pain, you can get through the normal treatment session a patient to drop 1 dress size or sometimes 2. If they want to keep going, if they're a heavier patient or they're an obese patient, they can keep going and having more treatments until they actually get down to the size that they're happy with. So you can target all over circumferential reduction, or if you've got a relatively slim patient who just wants a small area of love handles treated, you can treat that as well. So again, some more showing the cellulite reduction as well as the... So this is what I was talking about there. This lady actually was relatively slim anyway, but she wanted, like a lot seem to in Europe at the minute, she was conscious of the gap in between the thighs. So by targeting on the thigh area, you can actually reduce the upper thigh fat and lead to the gap there. This is an all over body contouring. She wasn't excessively big either, but she just wanted a little bit off here, there, and everywhere. So you can position the diodes to do hips, waist, and thighs. You can position them to just do abdomen. You can position them just to do thighs. It's complete. You don't have to buy additional parts to do all these treatments. That's the one I was telling you about before. That was only using 1 diode. So it's sitting the patient on the chair, having the device behind, having the diode just circling around on the jowls. And you can see, I don't know why they didn't use 2, because when you get it behind, you've got 2 diodes, you can have it circling around on both sides. Again, some of the clinics, they do measurements, some do it by body composition, some do it by saying to the patient, just bring that favourite pair of jeans that you have that you can't fit into very well, and they use that in the before and afters, and you can see with this lady. So from small patients who just need a little bit of a tuck to the bigger patients, very good on the bra strap area. Skin colour makes no difference, there's no preference. Black, white, makes no difference at all. Body contouring again. This is one that came in from Spain not long ago. I don't know why they took before and afters one side and took it on the other side, but you can see the type of result that they can actually get. So we use a lot of our clinics that we've actually got that provide us with the data. So when you're talking about, when I was a consultant, you're talking about FDA statements. Our FDA study result is the circumferential reduction of the waist, hips, and thighs. So on 20 to 30 BMI, on 30 to 40 BMI, reduction in the appearance of cellulite, reduction in the circumferential reduction of the upper arm. So when you look on the official FDA website, you look at official data, every company has to store not just the results, but it shows what they're FDA cleared for, it shows how many peer-reviewed published journals they've got, it shows how many adverse reactions or side effects there have been, and there's been no reported side effects or adverse reactions from either the red laser technology or from the green laser technology. Now the credible studies are the ones whereby you have factual data. There are some studies that are done appearance claim only. So it's just basically 3 specialists walking into a room and actually having a look at the patient, looking at the pictures and say, yeah, I can see a difference. There's nothing wrong with that, but when you look at science, you look at research, we believe more in factual research rather than appearance research. Sorry guys, I'm going to shift on because I know we're with time. So cellulite we all know about, but the effect we can get from this, it's a joint effect of reducing the fat cell but also promoting collagen remodeling, creating this natural biological response. Cellulite, it obviously depends. If you've got somebody with new cellulite, you would notice a result a lot quicker during this whole collagen remodeling process. Somebody's had it 10, 15 years, it'll take a little bit longer. The whole process should take up to 8 months. There's things you can do obviously in clinic to enhance it by massage, things like endomology, suction devices which can actually help it as well. But remember, our studies are just there's no adverse adjunct technologies. So obesity is something we're the only technology or the laser in this market that's got an FDA clearance to treat obese patients. That was between 30 to 40 BMI. Obese patients are generally very hard to treat because the lymphatic systems and metabolisms aren't very good because of bad lifestyle, because of bad diet. So when we're talking about using the lymphatic channels, the lymphatic flow, it's like a vehicle to get the fat out of the body. It's difficult for them because the lymphatic systems are normally impaired. So we doubled the amount of treatments on the obese patients. We noticed over 6-inch reduction in 73% of patients. So the ones that don't get the reduction are the ones, again, with the slower metabolisms that may be over 50, they've gone through the menopause. You know, they've got very inactive jobs, they just sit behind a desk. Now in clinic, you can work with those patients on enhancing their metabolism, enhancing the lymphatic system. So again, just to summarize everything we've discussed, knowledge is power. We've proved that the laser has a structural effect on the integrity of the fat cell. We've proved through ex vivo and in vitro that we can emulsify the fat and drain it out of the cell. We've proved depth of penetration, 4.5 centimeters. We've proved that we can provide a systemic effect. We've proved that we can reduce the amount of cholesterol during the course of the treatment. So it's a healthy treatment. I mean, this sort of thing you can see sometimes get some reduction straight away, but what we're just as more interested in is longer term reduction, not short term reduction.
And I'm sorry to have to
That's it?
short.
No, that was
Yes.
it. Oh, just one last thing. Again, we can use this technology for so many things, and we're doing some fantastic studies at the minute on promoting healing in things like Alzheimer's patients, Parkinson's, autism. There's a range of so many different things you can actually use the photonic energy pathway for, and the one that we're doing on autism at the minute, it should be ready hopefully soon for an FDA clearance. Lower back pain and Alzheimer's as well, to try to slow down the process. So, thank you.
So if you have any questions to Simon, or as for me and Christian, you can meet us at our booth.
Ja.
Så vi finns i monter 514 med det här gröna golvet, och vi har haft kö hela morgonen och testat maskinerna, vi har 2 stycken. Ni får komma dit och klämma in i kön. Är det någon som har några affärsmässiga frågor så kan ni ta det med oss direkt här strax utanför.
What booth number are you doing?
514.
Och några då som är nyfikna på resultatet, hon har alltså legat lite mer än 20 minuter. 20 minuter är det vi har som challenge där nere. Våra behandlingar är på 40 minuter, vi vänder på dem. Beroende på vart i området man vill ha behandling. Jag mäter 3 mätpunkter på henne nu. Strax under bysten, ovanför naveln och under naveln. Och hon hade 80 när hon startade ovanför naveln och hade 79,4, alltså minus 6 millimeter. Hon hade 87 vid naveln och minskade till 83,9. Oj, grattis! Ja.
Bra gjort.
Och under naveln hade hon 93,9 och minskade till 92. Hur många centimeter blir det nu då?
1,9.
Ja, plus de andra. Så vi har 2, vi har nästan, vi har 3, 5, nästan 6 centimeter. På 3 mätpunkter. Yes.
Så om inte ni är redan ute så ska vi springa ner till
Och vi springer ner med den här så kan ni möta upp oss.
Är det några frågor nu?